Hello, Andrew. Happy to have you here. So we are NPNEs. You're a patient advocate, bioinformatician,
and patient.
Patient.
Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about your history?
Yeah. So I was originally diagnosed with ocular melanoma in 2013 back in the U.S. And shortly after that, I moved to the Netherlands. And I needed to navigate all the new systems that I was not used to here and try to figure out how I would get care and where the patients and the clinicians who knew the disease were. And that naturally got me connected up with MPNE. Just by following down the channels, they all kind of led back to MPNE. So I got sucked into the MPNE vortex. Because I have a particular background. At that time, I was working actually in bioinformatics.
Yes. And
working on cancer diagnostics.
Okay.
In fact, the project that I was working on was the analysis pipeline for a desktop sequencing product that's known and well known in the research community, and was actually the device that was used to sequence the biopsy from my tumor.
Wow.
So it's an interesting test of a software product.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting perspective. Not many people have this experience.
Yeah.
So you produce a device, and you were the first in front of the performance of this device. So how do you felt about that?
Well, it's a strange feeling. I wasn't expecting, obviously, to be a patient consuming the diagnostic pipeline that we were producing, but yeah, and it was just coincidence that it happened to be that way. I think being in that position, coming from that world, and then flipping to the other side and becoming a patient, it put me in a position where I could be helpful because I was able to explain how the technologies for diagnostics and for the genetic analysis of the disease, how those things work to other patients. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that there's a lot of assumption, particularly in academia and among clinicians, that patients are not able to understand or handle complex information about diseases that are still on the forefront of research, and that is wrong. That patients actually have a much greater capacity to absorb that information, and it really helps them understand what's happening to them and what the options are and what trials mean and why they're important and all of those kinds of things. I think actually it's been more interesting in the other direction, the direction of helping researchers and clinicians understand the patient perspective. Yes, it's been important to help patients understand the science and all of that, but where we are most effective in this disease is when we change the way the processes work for evolving therapies. And I think we've done that in a couple of different ways. We are good at communicating patient priorities, which are not always obvious to the clinicians. They often think in terms of broad statistics. And for a patient, that is all inverted, right? Even therapies that have a low chance of working are important to patients, and they may not be as important to clinicians because they're always going to try the things that have the broadest effect first, and that's not wrong. But it's important to keep in mind that that's not where it ends, right? And that patients have a tolerance in a lot of cases to go deeper, because at the end of the day, when you have a disease that claims your life, you will take risks that you might not have taken otherwise, because what else are you going to do? So, and I think that that's a perspective that is sometimes very much lost on the people who are deep down, who are very well-meaning and very dedicated and very well-versed in the science, but they just sometimes they need to be reminded of these aspects of the impact on real patients in the real world. And
so how do you do that? How do you access to the researcher, physicians, and bring this information to them?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. I mean, it's meetings like this are, MP&E is really good at this, at bringing together these two worlds, these two communities, but then also things like sitting on the scientific advisory boards of these research consortia and being essentially voice of the patient. That's an area where I can help, especially because I can speak both languages. I can understand. It was really interesting with Cure. I actually got to help make decisions on which projects continued to have funding or were cut within that, because I could help bring some perspective as to what was most likely to have patient impact, while also understanding the science.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So, what are the future steps for this activity for you in the next years?
Well, we've been doing. I think we've been moving into some more tools. I think, and I think we'll continue to develop those. I think one area that's been really interesting for us is the partnerships and stakeholder management. We do some exercises with that where we really delve into what kinds of things each side can give to each other. How do you create a transactional relationship with partnerships, for instance, between industry and patient groups, or between the clinicians and pharma? There's all of these different connections that have different. They each have their own agendas, and it's about trying to figure out how we provide something mutually beneficial in each direction so that those partnerships are solid.
Thanks a lot for your discussion today and sharing your experience. This is a very original experience, so we're happy to have you and have your feedback on that. So,
well, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. See you soon.